abstinent. Everyone except the speakers should mute themselves now so we don't have background noise. Our speaker tonight is Tom. Welcome, Tom. After 15 minutes, our timer, Roger, will give you a buzz warning at 5 minutes before your 20-minute time limit is up. Please make sure you are unmuted and begin your share now.
Hey, everybody on? Absolutely, yeah. No problem. Okay. Do I have to join the audio here again? No.
We can hear you.
Okay, good enough. All right. Okay, I'm Tom, and I'm a compulsive overeater. And the first thing I have to do is I've got my face on the screen. I got to get rid of that. It'll drive me crazy. So let's see. Let's do numbers first. I started OA in 1979. I got abstinent January 15th of 1989. I'll be abstinent 32 years on January 15th, 2021, if I make it. It's a long time. That's like 6 weeks in the very dangerous holiday period, but they say that compulsive eating is a threefold disease, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. And believe me, in the past, it definitely was. And I have about 140-pound weight loss I've been maintaining for the whole time. Since I reached a goal weight of 180 pounds a year from the day I started my abstinence. So it's 125 pounds. My top weight was 305. And then I'm down about 15, 16, 17 pounds below my original goal weight because I got older and I lost a lot of lean muscle mass. And I'm now pretty damn thin, much shoulders and upper body, and just had to adjust. And you might see in my name, it says Tom the Jaywalker. And the reason I say the Jaywalker is because of that story of the guy in the Big Book who, rather than use a crosswalk, he'd rather run in front of cars and almost get hit by cars. And the guy's fascinated by doing things his way. And he finally gets hit by a fire truck and injures himself quite a bit. And that was my story, my first 9 years in OA. I gained 100 pounds my first, I would say 10 years, like 9.5 years, I think it was. I gained 100 pounds and I got good and ready. I got good and willing. And I finally got some discipline to do it your way and not my way. And do it by way of the Big Book, do it by way of the 12 steps, 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts. So I am no longer a jaywalker. I'm now using the crosswalks, No Readers Anonymous. And I am very grateful to be here. Oh, there's a cat. There's my cat behind me now. Very grateful to be here tonight and to share. I qualify with the story. I got to keep track of my time here. I get a bit windy. I'll qualify real briefly with a story that happened in like 1980. I was in OA already about a year, and I was still binging my brains out. And I was going hiking with a guy in the Pacific Crest Trail in Northern California, and we were going to stay up, backpack for 2 nights. So we went on this trail, Pacific Crest Trail, went to this place called Independence Lake, and I noticed when we were packing our packs, this guy Chris, who is now my ex-wife's husband. That's a whole different story, but that was that was a clean split on my part. But yeah, a whole different story. In fact, they're still married, and I spend time with them all the time, the two of them and my children. And so he had these 2 big candy bars in his pack, and I was trying to detox some sugar on this trip, and he went over to go fishing or something, and I went in his backpack, stole the candy bars, buried the wrappers in the sand. If you don't believe me, go up to Independence Lake. 40 years later, you just might find 2 candy bar wrappers. And he came back to the campsite, and he obviously knew I stole them. I took them, and I knew I took them. And this is what the Big Book called pitiful, incomprehensible demoralization. And that's what it was. It was awful, it was awful. So the funny part is about how long? 20 years later? I'm losing track of time. Number of years later, after I was already abstinent, I went to pick up my son, who was 17 at the time, so that must have been like at least 15 years ago or longer, and maybe 20 years ago. And I went to pick up my son, Ryan, and I told my ex-wife, my second wife, I've had two wives, I'm done getting married. So I told her, I took them candy bars off of Chris in 1980, so I'm going to return them. So I got these two same kind of candy bars, put it in my jacket pocket. I knocked on the door. Hey, Chris, remember the time you and I were backpacking on the Pacific Crest Trail at Independence Lake? He goes, yeah. I said, well, I took these candy bars out of you. I stole your candy bars. And he goes, I don't remember that. And I took them out, and he said, they're the wrong size. so he knew. He obviously knew. So, oh, God, talk about, oh, God, it was awful. I was one of those that broke furniture. One time when my kids were pretty little, they were like 10 and 7 or right around there. My ex-wife came to pick them up, and I was gaining, up near 300 pounds. And I sat in this chair, dining room chair, like I'm sitting in now, a wooden chair. And all of a sudden, the chair rocked back, and I broke the chair because of my size. And I was laying on the floor on a pile of wood that was a chair a few minutes later. And Nancy looked down at me, and she goes, it looks like Dad needs to go on a diet, So that was, that's what it was like. And it all started, the scene of the crime was my family of origin. I was raised on the East Coast in an alcoholic family. And we used to watch this show called Leave It to Beaver. And back in those days, the screen was about this big, round screen, and the case was as big as the big screen now. And I used to watch Leave It to Beaver, and I'd see June and Ward and Wally and the Beaver, and I would have been the Beaver in that scenario. I looked over my shoulder, and my parents, I was not in the Leave It to Beaver family. It was definitely an alcoholic family, and that was how it started for me. And then I was the fattest kid in every school I was in. I was the family shame. I grew up in San Francisco. We moved to San Francisco when I was 5. My mother used to tell me, Tommy, you're going to be the fattest kid in San Francisco. And that just led to more the demoralization. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. I always knew it felt like just like it talks about in the Big Book in the second step, it was a form of insanity. I just couldn't stop eating, and I couldn't stay away from sugar, no matter how much I tried. And I always knew there was a thin person inside that was trying to get out, and I didn't know what to do about it. And so when I went to OA the first time in 1979, my head told me that I didn't have this disease. In my own voice, it said, you don't have this, you don't need this, you don't need this, you don't need this Overeaters Anonymous crap. So I bought the old brown book, the chocolate book, whatever it's called, the stories, and I left. And went on my way and continued to gain weight. And I got back to OA and for real to stay in 1988. And so I finally started reading the Big Book, and I read the doctor's opinion, and what it said in there was men and women eat essentially for the effect produced by alcohol. So in our case, it would be men and women eat essentially for the effect produced by the food. And so it's not the food itself, it's the effect. It's that stuff feeling. I'm finally satisfied. It's what it comes down to is I'm not feeling the feelings I was feeling 5 minutes before I ate. But what happens is it's such a short-term drug or such a short-term high that I was totally, again, demoralized 5 minutes later, and I could never understand why I was doing it. And it goes on in that same paragraph, it says that the alcoholic life is the only normal one for us. And for me, it was the compulsive eating life was the only normal life for me. It was all I knew. It was binging, it was starving, it was restricting, it was rewarding, and I did that. I did some of that since I've been abstinent, some of the restricting, and then the rewarding, and I find that the middle way, the middle path, the middle road of abstinence, of just freedom of compulsive overeating, and not binging, not compulsive eating, one day at a time works for me. And I kind of see my abstinence as a triangle, like one side is no compulsive eating, one side is no binging, the other side is one day at a time. And I took this stuff real serious in the beginning. I mean, like, well, I did 146 meetings, and I did it like AA style. I did 146 meetings my first 90 days. I just continued to go to meeting after meeting after meeting, and sometimes 2 a day. One day I went to a meeting with this other fellow. Went to 4 OA meetings in one day. There was a 6:30 meeting, AM meeting by my house. We went to I think a 10 a.m. meeting at Citrus Heights, California. We came back to Sacramento and went to a 5:30 meeting and a 7:30 meeting, and it kept me abstinent. It kept me abstinent that day. And for me, the meetings are the medicine. You know, without the meetings, I don't know where I would be. You know, and so I was on step none. You know, that's step none, the one before step one. You know, trying to do this on my own, trying to diet, trying to starve. And I finally got to step one. And said, you guys said we had admitted we were powerless over food. We lacked power, you know, and couldn't manage our own lives. And it talks about that in the OA 12 and 12, in the first step, about how manageable was our lives, how happy were our homes, you know. And it's true. It's like I was a mess when I was trying to binge or starve or whatever I was doing. And I starved my way up to 300 pounds, literally, you know, between the binging and the starving. And so, you know, like in step one, you know, admitting I was powerless, I realized that it took many attempts for me to get abstinent, stay abstinent for almost 32 years now. It's kind of like Thomas Edison is the inventor of the light bulb, but they say he may have tried 10,000 times to invent a light bulb before he did, and now he has credit for the invention of the light bulb. It didn't take me 10,000, but it took me many times to get this. And once I got it, I was a firefighter for 30 years for the city of Sacramento, California, and I remember waking up January 15th, 89. I remember going to a Safeway near my house and buying my food for the day. And it was a lot more than I ate today, believe me. But it was abstinent for me at that time. And I remember you know, of course, we did 24-hour shifts at the time. It's now they do 48-hour shifts. But I remember waking up that next morning in the firehouse, and I said to myself, you have 24 hours of abstinence. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not willing to give up 10 minutes of that. And after almost 32 years, I'm still not willing to give up 10 minutes of this. I take this very seriously. You know, I live by a cemetery, you know, a big cemetery in East Sacramento. And, you know, we always say, oh, the poor alcoholics and addicts and, you know, all these people die early. And I go, what about us? What about the heart disease, the diabetes, the strokes, you know, the colon cancer, things like that are caused by this. This is probably more deadly than alcoholism, you know. And so when I got to step two, I looked at the insanity, and could I be restored to sanity? It says we'll be restored to sanity, but it doesn't say when, you know. And so I remember, and then the third step, you know, turn my will and my life over to something greater than myself. And I don't always use the God. It's kind of funny about the God word sometimes, but it's something. I have a power greater than myself that I can't describe. So this one, the last home I lived in, I planted some tomatoes in the backyard. And I knew the day because it was the day before my belly button birthday. It was April 14th. I'm not sure what year it was, like 1992, 3 or 4, back there somewhere. So I had these little tiny plants about 3 inches high and these big rebar screens around them, you know, and this guy, and I was sitting in my backyard with this guy I was sponsoring, and he goes, you really have a lot of faith in those tomato plants, don't you? And I said, I have hope and faith. I know it's going to happen. And I said, by the time we meet out here in October, these tomato plants are going to be 7 feet. They're going to be higher than the 7 feet wire. So, you know, it was kind of a cool summer, and it didn't warm up for a while, but by November, those tomato plants were like about 11 feet tall. They were just flowing over the top of this thing. And it's an illustration, I think, of working the steps. You know, I didn't know it was going to happen. And really, in my case, after trying so many different times, countless vain attempts, that I would get this thing that just like tomato plants, with enough sun, enough water, enough hope, enough care, this happened, just like it does every year. And I told him it was going to happen, and it did. And so,
5 minutes.
you know, it's 5 minutes, okay. So you know, again in Bill's story, he says that food ceased to be a luxury. You know, and for me, food did cease to be a luxury. You know, I just can't eat the way I used to eat and get away with it or want to. You know I have problems with certain foods. I have red light foods. I don't know if I'm actually a food addict or just a compulsive overeater. I don't limit myself to any. I don't abstain completely from anything. I haven't had meat or fish in 30 years. There's many foods I haven't had in a long time, but you know, but food ceased to be a luxury. And it goes on in that same page where it says that gradually things got, on page 8, that gradually things got worse, and they always did. For as long as I kept coming back to OA, I've been doing much better than I've ever done. And the focus on my program today is step 10 and 11. I really strongly believe in doing that daily inventory and meditation. I do it like it says out of the big book, and I do it. I'm like religious about it. I'm just like, Bill talks about it in step 10 to groove it into our lives. And I do mine first thing in the morning. And then I really got into a meditation practice early on, like well over 30 years ago. And I was meditating with some friends, some other people, fellows, in a Dharma hall in a meditation center near my house. And we were sitting an hour a day, an hour every morning, silent meditation. And man, does the dust ever settle with meditation? It really does. I'm really a big supporter of meditation practice, prayer meditation. And so when the meditation center closed for the COVID, that I started holding here at my house. So I have 1 or 2 guys come over every morning, and we sit quietly for an hour, and they just come and they go. But God, it's just the results have been amazing. And then the 12th step, you know, it says in the big book that nothing will so much ensure our recovery as working with the other compulsive overeaters. And I got super active in my inner group. I'm talking super active. When I first got abstinent, I started, I think, a meeting a day. I got like compulsive, but started like 8 meetings, I think. I started a meeting every day of the week. I did a Friday night meditation meeting, a Saturday night 100-pound meeting, a Sunday night abstinence meeting, and then we filled in weekdays almost every day of the week in Sacramento. And it just kept me involved. And I got on the retreat committee, and I was chair of the retreat committee, and actually was able to move our retreat to a really beautiful place in Lake Tahoe. And it just kept me coming back. And I don't do as much service as I used to. I was a secretary of a face-to-face meeting when the pandemic happened, and now I'm just like the rest of us. I'm on Zoom. You know, there is a park meeting I go to Friday. We sit outside because it's still warm enough in Sacramento. But you know, I just can't say enough for this program. And my journey is maybe unlike your journey, but I know one thing. It is now 6:07 in Sacramento. I have 18 hours and 7 minutes of abstinence, and I'm very grateful for that 18 hours. And I've got about almost 12,000 days before that, and I'm grateful for those 12,000 days. But the only thing I'm worried about is this day, November 29th, 2020. Thank you for asking me to share.